we talked about the story on this show, I think a couple of weeks ago, and this was after, of course, people wondered what was going on at the Housing Tribunal, and all of a sudden, we found out that the average rent increase allowable this year would be 5.9%. And I say average because we also found out that that's exactly what it means. There would be some landlords who could ask much, much more, depending. It seems to me that at that point, because reaction was so negative, I think that's the highest average rent increase allowed, if I can, certainly in recent memory. The government decides to go ahead and revamp things and try to come up with something a bit more equitable. But I remember the interview we had said that, you know what, this plan they came up with could actually, in fact, be worse, which is hard to believe, but let's find out more. Lisa Hollinger is a lawyer in civil litigation and mediation. She is on the phone. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
What is the issue with this? The government said this was the new formula, which is supposed to go into effect, by the way, in 2026, bases rent hikes on the Consumer Price Index for the 3 previous years, municipal, school taxes, and insurance costs. Why is that wrong, according to you?
Okay, so First of all, I'd like to say that the formulae, the two, the old and the new, it's still a one-size-fits-all. This is my first problem and my big problem, okay? Because it applies to every renter and every tenant in the same way. So the problem here with the new form, it starts with an automatic 4.5% increase, as you indicated, which is stated to be the average annual variation in the Consumer Price Index for Quebec for 3 years. I don't see the justification for it. Rent is set for the future. It's based on previous year's expenses. Using a 3-year average skews the results. So the current rate for CPI for March is 2.3% and decreasing. The housing minister, seems to be creating her own little economy for use at the TAL. But look, rates changes in the index in 2022 were at 6.8%, 2023 3.9%, 2025 2.4%. So you could see the use of a 3-year changes those results and can drastically. Mm-hmm. The form is on its face, is oversimplified. So as you say, we're still keeping in the changes, the incremental changes between this year and last year's taxes. We're keeping insurance in. Interesting thing, I did the simulation, which the TAL provides a website to try out the new form. I indicated increases for the taxes and insurance, or a decrease in insurance, and the form came out with minus percentages. Okay, which again I thought was very confusing and didn't understand, but they seem to be. So they first take a 4.5% increase in the current rent as the base. Okay. And then when they get through with it, they seem to be then minusing numbers from that monthly amount, which made no sense to me, right? You have an increase in taxes, but a decrease in insurance, and I get minuses, but for different amounts. That was one problem. They are also, by the way, they got rid of percentages applicable to the net profits or net income, which was a good move, because it was the increase they gave on net profits in the current formula, which is 6.9% this year, that actually resulted in the suggested 5.9 increase. If you got rid of the 6.9% on the net profits calculation in the current formula, the increase would have been 3%. Okay? So profit margin, bad problem. And also, I say it could enrich, some and impoverish others. Okay, sorry.
I was just going to say, to your first point about, the one-size-fits-all solution, the TAL goes out of its way to suggest that every case is treated independently. So that would be a problem off the get-go, would it not?
Well, so here we go again. They use a formula, okay? Applies to everybody. So they don't distinguish one tenant or lease or type of property from another.
Right.
So we're not looking at sizes, the construction, the physical construction. Is it concrete, a slab? Is it brick veneer? What the neighborhoods are? Are we in Saguenay? Are we in Montreal? What's the amount of the rent, the size of the unit, the age of the building, the physical state of the building, the state of repairs, the use of the property, the size of the property, the services provided. People could probably write their own host of factors that just aren't considered. So I say yes, it's a one-size-fits-all, and it doesn't work. The new form is the same. It's oversimplified. It's at the other end of the spectrum, but it's still the same formula. Now, here is their database. The TAL database involves decisions rendered by the tribunal, which represent less than 0.2% of the 1.5 million renters in Quebec. Okay? There's no data for the actual rent increases for the rest of the renter population. So 0.2% and less, is not an accurate representation. And I believe that their numbers are not significant enough to justify using them as a basis upon which to set future rents. Now, yes, they say, this is not they're trying to purport that the form isn't for use with everyone, and these are particular situations. But what are they doing? They're lumping together all of these particular situations or exceptional cases. They shouldn't be lumped together. And that is why I argue with them that this is part of the inherent nature of the flawed formula.
Yeah. So there's been backlash already. As I said, we spoke about this about a week or so ago. The idea being here, if I recall from that interview, that landlords basically are free to ask any amount they want, right? Is that part of the concern here? Who's benefiting here?
It's hard to say who's benefiting. It depends. Look, I did the simulation. I added $2,000 for this new category called new operating expenses, which the landlord's supposed to estimate, and it gave me an 11% increase. Mm-hmm. I mean, so both sides are arguing that the formula can hurt both, and I believe one of the tenants' rights organizations did studies on the historical data and found that it would have actually hurt the tenants. For me, it's still inherently flawed. You can't make the same formula for every situation, and every situation should be, adjudicated on its own merits. A cap is what is needed. So I would like to say, and in view of the fact that the housing minister has now backtracked, right? I think, and she's basically announcing during rental season, it should be 4.5%. Yes, we're starting it next year, but we're letting you know now. I think what they need to do is to make an exceptional pronouncement that they're applying a cap for 2025 on all rent increases.
So a cap until they come up with a different plan, or a cap in period as that's what we're going to do heading into for everything going into the future?
Well, I think right now it should be an exceptional cap for this year, because we have an old and a new, and it should apply to tenants who've already agreed to unreasonable increases out of fear.
Right, okay.
And the fact is, I don't know that the answer is another formula. It may just be a cap, and landlords will have to prove, if they go to the tribunal, why it is they're entitled to a certain increase. And then let's use the Consumer Protection Index and Stats Canada as a guiding tool.
But the only other issue then becomes, and we know this already, cap or no cap, is just how long it takes to get anything done when there is a complaint from a tenant, right? It's not a matter of you go there a week later, it's adjudicated and you're done. The system just doesn't seem to be able to handle the number of complaints it has. No,
it can't. And, it depends. I mean, if we're talking a non-payment of rent, they're usually heard much quicker, but I have one particular case, it's a few years that it's waiting for on other issues involving a tenant, but it's very, very difficult to get before the rental board, yeah.
See, that's something they're going to have to fix as well. I thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Lisa Hollinger, a lawyer in civil litigation. But there you go. That's the situation where the government thought it was doing something to make the situation better. Clearly, not everyone's on board, and for obvious and I think real reasons.